Trump versus Ted Cruz. Who's lying? Trump versus Ted Cruz. Who's lying? Thank you for tuning in to Laurel at the Black Political Buzz Network. Recently in the mainstream media, the mainstream media that's controlled by the Obama administration and controlled by people like George Soros and controlled by the GOP establishment, that same mainstream media, they try to put out a false story or make it appear as if Donald J. Trump, who was the 2016 GOP presidential front runner, they tried to make it appear as if Donald J. Trump was picking on the wife of his opponent, Ted Cruz, trying to make it appear as if Donald J. Trump is, being a sexist and he's picking on Heidi Cruz, who is the wife of Ted Cruz, U.S. Senator and Cuban, Senator Ted Cruz, the same Ted Cruz who was born in the country of Canada. And we still don't know if he's eligible to be U.S. president. We don't even know how he became a U.S. senator because he was born in Canada. And Canada is not a U.S. territory. I repeat, Canada is not a U.S. territory. Now, we know that John McCain, the 2008 GOP presidential nominee, we know that John McCain was born in Panama, but he was born in Panama because his father was serving in the U.S. military and the U.S. Navy as an admiral, and Panama is considered a U.S. territory. But Canada is not a U.S. territory. So we don't know how Ted Cruz, is eligible to be a U.S. president. Don't even know how he's eligible to be a U.S. senator, but I digress. The mainstream media was trying to make it appear as if Donald J. Trump was picking on Ted Cruz. Now, Ted Cruz has a super PAC that put out, an ad, about Trump's, showing a naked a photograph of Trump's wife when she was a model before he married her. Because everyone knows that Melania, who was a very, very beautiful woman, she was a famous supermodel. Melania Trump was at one time a very famous supermodel. So I'm sure there are some pictures of her out there. Excuse me. I'm sure that there are some photographs of her out there, of her in the nude. Because when you are a supermodel, there are sometimes when you are going to be asked to pose nude. She wasn't doing anything wrong. That's not pornography. She was a supermodel, modeling for high fashion designers and high fashion magazines. But this super PAC that exists, it's an anti-Trump super PAC that supports Ted Cruz, put out this ad of trying to muddy the waters and make it appear as if Melania Trump was, some bad person, like she was some kind of pornography star, when she was never a pornography star. She was a world-class supermodel, like Naomi Campbell and women like that, and Christy Brinkley and those women along that caliber, and Cheryl Teagues and so forth, and Tyra Banks, the same, caliber of supermodel. And then when Trump hit back, because now Melania is Trump's wife. So when Donald Trump hit back to defend his beautiful wife, as he should have, any real man that's a man is going to defend his wife. Now, if you are a wimp or a punk, if you are a wimp, then you're not going to defend your wife. But if you are a real man, you're going to defend your wife's honor. And Donald Trump was defending his wife, Melania Trump's honor, and letting the world know she's not a porn star, never has been. She was a supermodel, and that picture of her posing in a nude was one of her supermodel shots for a client, not a pornography magazine. Well, Ted Cruz and the mainstream media, because Ted Cruz is not the conservative that y'all think he is. He's not the conservative, sweet, guy, evangelist guy that the mainstream media, including Fox News, is trying to paint him as. I repeat, Ted Cruz is not the conservative, evangelistic, U.S. senator, a GOP candidate for president that the mainstream media, including Fox News, is trying to paint him as. There's some dirt there. So Donald Trump defended his wife, Melania, as he should have, as any real man would have. Well, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, said, hey, stop picking on my wife, Melania, Ted Cruz, or I'm going to let out some dirt about your wife. Donald Trump told the media that via Twitter. He said, if you don't leave my wife alone, I'm going to come after your wife. Now, then Ted Cruz, he wanted to strike out at Donald and make it seem like Donald Trump is a sexist and he's picking on women and he's a bully against women. Liar. This super PAC. There's no way that Ted Cruz did not know this super PAC was going to put that ad out there about, Donald Trump's wife. Even if Ted Cruz claims he didn't know anything about it, I don't believe it. He knew. All because he didn't tell the super PAC, all because Ted Cruz did not order or give the okay for the super PAC to do that. He knew about it. He could have said, hey, y'all, don't do that. Wives and children are off limits. Ted Cruz could have told his super PAC, the super PAC company that supported him in his campaign, he could have said, hey, y'all don't do that, because wives and children are off limits when, in politics. But he didn't. The same way as Ted Cruz lied about Ben Carson in Iowa when he put out a robocall saying that Ben Carson had conceded from the race in Iowa when Ben Carson had not at that time conceded the race. So all of a sudden, Ted Cruz, he's going to stand up there in the media and, Donald Trump, you're a wimp, you're not a real man, leave my wife alone, or I'm going to come after you, blah, blah, blah. Please. So then, the National Enquirer, the same National Enquirer that busted John Edwards, the same National Enquirer magazine publication that busted the affair of 2008 presidential candidate John Edwards, a Democrat from North Carolina, when the same publication that outed John Edwards' affair with a videographer. And John Edwards did the same thing. John Edwards did the same thing then that Ted Cruz is doing now. Oh, this is just a bunch of lies. Because see, the National Enquirer, they put out a story about Ted Cruz and many affairs, him being involved in many adulterous extramarital affairs. That's right, the National Enquirer. And the John Edwards story is not the only story that the National Enquirer was right about when it comes to extramarital affairs. There have been other famous politicians whom the National Enquirer has outed their extramarital affairs to the public. So when they came out and they published a story recently, last week, that Ted Cruz has been involved with at least 5, other women outside of his marriage in adulterous affairs, Ted Cruz immediately wanted to say, Donald Trump did this. Donald Trump has done this. This is a lie, and I condemn it. I denounce it. I have never been unfaithful to my wife. Donald Trump is doing this to muddy the waters, even though Ted Cruz is Ted Cruz's super PAC threw the first punch by putting an ad out there about Melania Trump. Now he wants to say that Trump is, being extra dirty against him. Even though Ted Cruz put out a robocall about Ben Carson in Iowa, saying Ben Carson had left the race at that time when he had not. Now Ted Cruz wants to play victim. Ted Cruz wants to be the victim now and cry foul play. Well, the mainstream media has exposed the fact that it was not Donald Trump who went to the National Enquirer about Ted Cruz's alleged, I'm going to say alleged, about Ted Cruz's alleged adulterous extramarital affairs. It wasn't Donald Trump that spilled the beans and leaked the story. It wasn't. It was Marco Rubio's allies, Marco Rubio's supporters who leaked that information, including videotape of Ted Cruz being with these women. And there's supposed to even be a videotape existing of showing Ted Cruz leaving a hotel with one of the women who he has been allegedly involved with in an extramarital affair. There's a videotape of showing him leaving a hotel in Washington, D.C. on a Tuesday and a Thursday. So apparently he's been involved with this woman, where they met at a hotel in Washington, D.C. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the National Enquirer has evidence. So, but Ted Cruz tried to say Donald Trump was lying on him and picking on him. But Donald Trump had nothing to do with this. Now the mainstream media has spilled the beans that it wasn't Donald Trump's camp. It wasn't Donald Trump's campaign that leaked this stuff to the National Enquirer. It was Marco Rubio's allies and supporters. Why would Marco Rubio's allies and supporters leak this information about Ted Cruz's private life and extramarital affairs to the National Enquirer? Marco Rubio is now no longer in the race. Marco Rubio conceded the race after losing the Florida primary to Donald Trump. So why would Marco Rubio's camp spill the beans on Ted Cruz? Could it be because they expect or they suspect? Could it be that Marco Rubio's supporters suspect that Ted Cruz people went to the mainstream media about some gay stories about Marco Rubio's previous life before he became a U.S. Senator? Could it be that Marco Rubio found out that it was Ted Cruz's people who were spilling the beans on Marco Rubio's alleged gay, lifestyle before he became a U.S. Senator? Now I'm saying alleged. I don't know if he was involved in any gay lifestyle activities, but it's out there now. It's all, if you can Google it, it's out there. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't even know if Ted Cruz has been involved in the extramarital affairs. But the National Enquirer says they have some videos and they have stuff that was given to them, and they're willing to go to court. The National Enquirer is willing to go to court to back up their facts the same way they were willing to back up their facts about the John Edwards story. So who's lying? Trump or Ted Cruz? Donald Trump said Ted Cruz was a liar. Marco Rubio said Ted Cruz was a liar. And that Ted Cruz is not the conservative, nice guy, evangelist guy that y'all think he is. Or that the mainstream media, including Fox News, is trying to paint Cruz as being. So who's lying? Stay tuned. Who's lying? Trump or Cruz? Stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in to Laurel at the Black Political Buzz Network. Goodbye.